Hey, good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining Fett263 presents Fun with Saber Effects for Proffieboard. Hopefully everybody had a good holiday season. Tonight I had a couple things to talk about and show, a couple styles that I just wanted to touch upon. But then as people join, if there's particular questions, I have noticed I do moderate on both the open source and Proffieboard support group on Facebook, and noticed a lot more new people join. It looks like a lot of people got Christmas and holiday gifts with Proffieboard, which is awesome. So hopefully we get a few of the new people to join if they have any questions, and see if we can answer it for them. But as usual, I'll try to keep up with the chat as I go, as people join in. What I was going to start with, I already know there's going to be questions, is a couple of the new things I'm working on. So I was going to kind of just talk about them. I can kind of demo them, although there's so much to demo. The demo videos I had made that are on my channel are probably a better source, but touch upon them. And then a couple just little style things, some questions I had received recently. And then anything you guys come up with. Oh, hey, Mountain Sabers is here. Great. Hey, Kendall Hall, thanks for joining. First and foremost, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. Hey, Brian. Hey, thanks for joining tonight, Brian. Happy New Year. Kim's here. Everybody's joining in. I guess I'll give it a minute and let everybody join in. Starting right on the dot. Sometimes get people join lately, but hopefully everybody did have a great New Year. And hopefully we get a few of the new users to Proffieboard in here if they have any questions. Hey, Max, thanks for joining. So the biggest thing that I've been working on actually for a while is the edit mode, and then I added the track player to it. So I was going to kind of talk a little bit about it. I can demo it. As I said not too long ago, the demo videos are probably a little bit better just because there's actually so much involved. But since Brian's on, again, big thank you to Brian for coming up with all the sounds. So I had reached out to Brian because originally with the big thing with the edit mode is obviously knowing what's happening with your Saber. So my early mock-ups and tests, I had done some kind of just recorded my voice on Audacity, and it was terrible. And I didn't want to demo for anybody the feature because I felt like it was going to be cheapened by the fact that I'm terrible with making audio files. So I reached out to Brian because he's done some stuff for me in the past, and he turned the stuff around even quicker than I expected. So big thanks for that. And really, it was what was needed to be able to properly demo it. So I appreciate all your help and support with that. Let's see. We got hey Nick, thanks for joining. Captain Finesser's here. Captain Finesser, new to Proffi. Cool. Yeah. Well, welcome to the world of Proffi. If you have specific questions, I will definitely be happy to try to answer them for you. Sometimes it can be a lot. I try to just describe stuff as I do it, but if you're brand new to it, some of this stuff might seem a little bit new, but I do have a lot of videos you can go check out. And as you become more familiar with it, it should be a lot easier, even some of the terminology we use. Yeah, Brian definitely came through and did a great job with them, and for the sound. So I'll do the demo in a moment or two, just in case anybody hasn't seen the videos. But if when we're done with the live, definitely check out these 4 videos in particular. For what I'm showing, just because there's so much, I could end up spending over an hour of the show trying to explain everything that is already actually in a different video. But so kind of just a little bit of a backup. First of all, most of the functionality for edit mode is actually, obviously all of it's thanks to Frederick, but what was going on was, and Brian will know this, when we did the fork, SA22C and I did the fork a long time ago, 2 years ago, I think. We had the color change, which was new to Proffi at the time, and then we also had an effect scroll. An effect scroll was a separate control that let you change the styles of the blade. And how it would work back then was it would actually just scroll through a list of styles that you built into styles that you were built into a single thing, and you could roll through them and choose the one you wanted and lock it in. I see some more people in the chat. Carly King, thanks for joining. Andrew Madden, hard time getting into bootloader. I can, yeah, that I can kind of show in a little bit, Andrew. I don't have it open now, but I can kind of cover that. See if I can help you out with that. But so anyway, for a long time, so when Frederick released OS 3.9, he included his own version of color change with the color wheel, which actually covered a lot more area. And he added the color change as a style from the fork, but he never migrated the effect scroll over. What was happening was you could change the colors, and technically with the color change style, you could stick styles in there and have them row, but you couldn't do them separately. So I've been bugging Frederick, a lot of people have, but I've been bugging Frederick trying to get the effect scroll moved over to the OS, and he, it was a lot, it does add a lot of code. So he wasn't really looking for adding that, and I've kind of, I would bounce it off of him, and he'd say it's not really what he wants, but we can do the fork, or the fork exists, etc. But then, one of the last times I brought it up, he actually introduced me to the web USB functionality that he built, and I remember it being announced a long time ago, but I never looked at it. So what the edit mode is it's actually taking the code that Frederick developed for web USB, and it's repurposing it. And then I built the menus around it, just based off of, essentially it's actually just based off of the twist angle. So it's kind of the combination of that, but the functionality comes from something that actually already existed. But now Frederick, because a lot of it's just some pretty heavy concepts, Frederick still continues to help me and provide code and stuff, and there's still a lot to go on it. But now we have the ability to change the styles in this edit mode. So essentially, edit mode expanded from that idea. But what I was going after was getting the effect scroll concept into the main OS. And actually, what came out of it is what I've been working on that the videos cover. But now with the edit mode that I'm building, you're going to have the ability to change the styles on any of your presets right from the Saber. Different than effect scroll, but same concept. But what it does is it actually uses all of the styles on your blade. So effect scroll in the OS, you would have to make a single style that would contain all the different effects you wanted to run. What the web USB capability and also now edit mode does is it actually just treats each individual preset as a saved style, and it lets you just rotate them through. And then also on top of that, because the functionality was there, you're going to be able to just change fonts on the fly and change tracks. And also copy presets and delete presets, which actually what ends up happening, and for those, I know Brian's looked at this a lot, anybody who's looked at the SA22C stuff on the presets INI and editing it by hand, and actually I should have had that open. So this will, essentially edit mode's going to get into this anyway. Where's the wiki? So if you're not familiar with GitHub, that's where ProffiOS is. If you go to the wiki and then go right into this stuff here, this editing presets by hand, this is also related to what's going to come with edit mode. But the concept is that you're actually going to be able to change essentially all these parts. So you're going to have your font, your track, your styles. Name is not really important, so name doesn't change. And then variation, which is actually your color change, all from controls built into the Saber. So kind of got long-winded. But again, the web USB discussion is here. Web USB, I played with it a little bit, you have to put a define in your config, but you can also do these same exact things out of the web USB platform if you have the OS updated to be able to do it, because there's a few other controls that have to get added. But once this is done, and it's still got a lot of work, the idea is to move all that stuff to your Saber. And I've been negligent of the chat. Let me just catch up with everybody here. Hey, Chet, thanks for joining. Let's see. Yeah, color change has been around for a while, Kim. Back in, again, I want to say it was 2 years ago, but time's kind of frozen for me, I'm sure with everybody else. But I had been asking about it, and Frederick got me started. And actually, that was that and the lightning block are kind of what got me into trying to figure out code and how to manipulate the OS. And I feel like I've learned a lot, but I also haven't even learned a fraction of what I need to know. But at any rate, color change was something that at the time Frederick didn't really see or want in the OS. So that's what the fork came from. Was I had, with a ton of help from him, was able to get color change to work. And then, but he didn't want it in the main OS at the time. So then SA22C had his fork that he'd done a lot of stuff with, and he offered to help me get it because I'd never done anything with GitHub. So we worked together to get that there, and a lot of other stuff came out of that fork. The effect scroll, like I talked about earlier, plus a new way to do localized lockup, getting the lightning block codes slimmed down. So a lot of stuff came out of that fork, even though it's not supported anymore, that moved into the main OS. But yeah, color change was kind of the start at the time for me, because I had wanted to be able to do it, and it wasn't offered on Proffi, and so I tried to learn it, and I wouldn't have learned it without Frederick, but at least I learned enough to get it done. But yeah, so we've come a long way from that. Let's see. So Smooth Jazz family. So this is so the White and Silver. If anybody, Megtooth Sith has a Monday show. Last night on Megtooth show, this question was asked. It might have been you. I think you're on that show, Smooth Jazz. I feel like you were. But at any rate, color change right now, the color wheel in particular. So color change is a style. You could actually just build white in yourself. That's where you put a list in. That's easy. The color wheel runs through the RGB spectrum, and actually I have all these tools available. I don't know why I put my face up when I should be showing you guys actual usable stuff. Let me go open a new editor window. So what the color change is doing, let's get to rotate colors. So this will do it essentially. Let's slow it down. So what rotate colors is the function that runs the color wheel essentially. But what it does, the reason it doesn't, oops, that's too fast. I went the wrong way. Let's slow it down to 5. Is it's changing the RGB values to go through all possible colors. White or anything whitish actually is outside of that right now. But Frederick actually had an idea a while ago, so it's not a new idea, but I've been talking to Frederick about it. I don't have anything yet, but it is something I'm looking at to be able to add the ability to go to white. It will have to be a kind of a different axis type thing, but it was actually Frederick's original idea to get the axis to be able to get to white and stuff like that. So there's some stuff that's right now it's concept, but working towards that. So the idea would be that on top of being able to hit every color in terms of the RGB combinations, also to be able to change those values, because all white really is. So what ends up happening is this is essentially white. It's just all 3 RGB at full value. That's what creates white. But you can't do that with the current color wheel, because the current color wheel is going to change each of these together. So unless you start, so if you're starting color in, actually I can show that too. So we'll rotate colors X, and we'll do a sign again. We'll do it really slow. You're not going to see anything, but we'll do it really slow. So this is, what did I do wrong? Oops, I got an E in there, typo. Sign function didn't close. Got to pay attention. So this is actually moving, but it's not, because the all of these values are changing together. So what ends up happening is if you can stick white into rotate colors X, it will actually respond to color change. You just don't get any different colors. But how you can see it changing is if you pull one of these guys down, you will see the U change. And actually, it's probably a little too bright. Let me pull it down more. So that's what. So what it is the rotate colors is actually able to change. It changes all 3 values, but it changes them equally. That's why you have a hard time getting white if you have a base color. The silver blade, I feel like I'm going off on a tangent, but the silver blade actually has a hue to it, so it's more white-ish, but it has the blue, and it actually allows you to do some rotative colors. It still stays a white blade, but it'll go through similar to this. It's a little different number combination, but it's essentially able to do this with color change. But the reason you can't get white currently is because it's a full value on all three. So if you try to change these, they're already at max. You can't actually do anything else with them. So long story short, it's in discussions. Conceptually, there's already some ideas about it, but the ability to add a white and silver as part of color change is something that's being considered. But there's so much, and Frederick's really busy, and I'm bothering the hell out of him already. But it's something that I have that I'm trying to go after. So down the road, no promises on when, but down the road, I think it's something we'll get. The alternative is to do color change if you wanted to. You could build a color change style. We'll just do instant. I hate that I'm typing all weird tonight. So if you really wanted pure white in the current technology, you would just do something like this, and then each time you advance the color, it will let you then get white out of it. So there's a few ways possible, but long term we are looking at being able to do that. Oh wow, that chat really got long. Sorry I missed you guys on the chat. Let me see where I left off. Was on the white and silver question. Copy. Okay. Yeah. So so this is in reference to edit mode. In edit mode, it actually, if you copy a preset, it doesn't add any. It doesn't take up any more memory. That's the short answer. Which is what makes it awesome. So essentially, I mean, I haven't gotten there, but theoretically, you can load up a ton of presets on your config, load them to the Saber, then you'll go into edit mode, and you can copy those presets over and over again. And you can do that with the presets INI, which is where that kind of concept comes in. Again, it's also in web USB capability. So what it does is it just reuses that same preset, but you can actually change the color, the font, and the track to then create a completely new preset. So like typically, you know, the standard right now, most people use audio flicker or random flicker or some, you know, normal kind of a blade, and you use it if you wanted to have a red blade and a green blade and a blue blade and, you know, purple and an orange, and you would make a preset of audio flicker in red, audio flicker in blue, audio flicker in green, audio flicker in orange, audio flicker in yellow, audio flicker in white. And you would then have those presets all individually on your config. And depending on the other options you choose in there, the use of the audio flicker, and if you have a number of effects, it doesn't take up a ton of additional space because of how everything gets compressed. But having a different color in that audio flicker still takes up a little bit more than if you had the audio flicker style one time and then copied it using the either web USB or the edit mode and changing the color after the fact. Because what it does then is it actually just uses the existing audio flicker style, and it applies that variation number, which is the number that tells it the color. So you end up, instead of having, you know, and I don't remember the percentages, but if you had like, say, 10 uses of audio flicker with 10 different colors, and you loaded them up in your config, that would be, you know, probably it adds like a percentage of memory per color or something like that, roughly. If you just loaded the audio flicker style at one time and then copied it with either web USB or the menu, it would then not take up any additional space because it's the exact same style. Now, obviously, there's going to be some limits there. So say that you like having color combinations with different effects or other stuff like that, then you do need to have separate presets loaded, which therefore that space gets allocated. But if you have styles that you just use over and over again, and really you're just changing the color, the font, or the track, you'll be technically unlimited. But you're unlimited in the number of presets. The number of styles that you're limited to is what you're able to fit on the board. And then that's where Frederick's new Arduino plugin comes in, because that actually compresses stuff even more. So the moving towards having a ton of stuff on the Sabers is getting closer and closer. So let me see. Wow, this chat got really long. I'm sorry, guys. I'm behind. Nick, let's see. Yeah, so and edit mode is still a little ways away. There's actually still a lot going on. I'm still doing a lot of testing and proving stuff out, and then I haven't even given the code to Frederick to then make sure it's actually all good. It works, but then he usually has a lot of cleanup, so it's still down the road. But I was excited it was working, so I showed everybody. But the way so it would work with anything. Technically, it would work now if we got these pieces into the OS. But to get the optimum out of it, there's actually changes to how the styles will be built so that they're more compatible with each other. And there'll be a lot of write-up on it. It will be, so it'll work, but if you want to get the best performance out of it and also fit the most on it, we're gonna basically I'm gonna explain how best to kind of be efficient with the styles. But that's still a little ways down. But when it releases OS 6, so there would be an OS 6 library which will automatically have those optimizations built into it. There's a few other pieces that still have to come into play for this too. So, and Brian knows this, Obi-Rob Kenobi had the wavelength function, which allowed for you to time ignition, retraction, preon, and a few other things based on the sound file playing. I'm kind of leveraging that functionality, even though it's not in the OS yet, for how I want to optimize, because everything is obviously timed out. If you have a style loaded on with a very short ignition and then all of a sudden you change fonts to a really long ignition, it wouldn't line up perfectly. So there's a lot of moving parts that all have to come together for all this stuff. But the library to support the OS that this is part of will be designed for that purpose. Older styles would work, but again, you'll have some instances where it might not be the optimal use of it. But everything's usually backwards compatible. This wouldn't be any different than that. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be Z-axis, Brian, on that. There's a few things that Frederick had mentioned, but nothing concrete yet. It's more conversation at this point. I had a couple ideas I threw his way. He had the original idea, so I don't know the exact thing, but the idea of getting to white is something that's in play. Let's see. Yeah, we answered that. Let's see, black possible. So. Smooth Jazz Family, black is your bleed off in terms of OS. So if you put black in, it turns your bleed off. That essentially actually tells the Saber to turn off. That's why you'll see if you have accent lights, or if you ever look at the actual code breakdown for in-out TRL, it has black in it. Black means off. Now, if you want something close to black, you could do. Like, this is probably going to be impossible to see, actually, but that would be, it's pretty impossible to see. That's not black, so it wouldn't turn your blade off, but it also probably wouldn't even have enough light to shine through the tube. But black is not really a color. It's in terms of the Saber. Now, if you're talking about the dimming, which might be actually what you're talking about, there's a couple ways to do dimming. I have the power save styles. There is actually a dim blade function for your blade that you can do. And again, Obi-Rob Kenobi actually had his fork has a dim blade function in it. His approach was different than mine, so I don't know which one. Actually, both would probably make it in, but they would be different. But to be able to make the blade dimmer towards black is something that probably can be done too. Again, long term. Let's see. Oh, I got more people. Hey, Blaze Hawk, thanks for joining. Let's see. Confused about what 3 style lines under sound fonts in my config file did. Probably need more specifics on that. It'd probably be easier if you post that to one of the groups, but do I have my config open? So real quick, just for anybody who is new, oops, let me put this away. These are going to be big because I'm testing a lot of stuff. So, and all my stuff is all. Can you guys see that? Wow, it doesn't look great on screen. So in your presets, right, in your config, the first quotation marks, that's your font. That's the font folder, or in this case, font folders that run this preset. Your second group is your track, and that tells it where the track is located to play. And then this code here, it's always gonna pretty much always. There's a few other easy blades that I think that start different. It's always going to start with style PTR, and it's always going to end with these closed brackets all the way down here. So this is one style, and this style is for the first blade of your saber. Now I have 2 blades on my saber here, so there's a second style under here. Now if you're saying you had 3, then you have 3 blades. Blades in terms of the Proffi world, it doesn't mean that, it doesn't actually mean the whole blade. It could be accent LEDs, a crystal chamber, but you could have 3 blades if you had a cross guard. But blades, just as a term for Proffi, is just an individually colored, styled, and controlled data line, essentially. So having 2 blades, I have 2 styles here. So that's the first style. And this style will always run on the first blade, and the order of the blades is all the way, and again, this is long. That style works with the first blade I configure. So this is the first blade I configure, happens to be my main blade. This is going to be the style that runs there. That second style is what runs on this, which is those accent LEDs that I have on this particular saber. So if you have 3 style PTRs, BlazeHawk, in your configs in each preset, then you have 3 blades. Again, it could be accent LED. Also, depending on how they wire it up, if you didn't wire it yourself, the stock NeoPixel connectors, sometimes those are also wired up to have their own styles. So that could also be it. But if you have 3 blades, you'll have 3 styles. But essentially, all you got to do is just know the order of the blades that are defined at the very bottom is the order the styles have to be in, and they have to have the same number. So if you have 3 blades defined at the top, now I have 2. So if you have number of blades 2, right here, you got to have 2 styles. Why can't that have it? 2 styles per preset, and you also have 2 blades defined at the very bottom of the config, and that's how everything kind of runs together. And that was a really quick coverage of it, but there's plenty of guys already even on this chat. If you posted in any of those groups with your config, they could probably help explain it a little better and more specific. That's I mean, that was pretty awesome that you and Obi Rob got that running. And when I saw that, I was thinking, that helps, particularly for people who don't know how to change the timings. Now, I had added in the library about that same time, I added the ability to change the timings in the library, and then that came out. But at any rate, it would be, I lost the words. It makes it easier. Let's see. Okay. All right. Oh, Bobby. Hey, Bobby Coleman. Thanks for joining. Let's see. Yeah, that's actually, so it technically is there now. It's just not in the Crystal Chamber code. So in the library, though, you can grab a preon from a different location. So typically, because I've had this question a few times, if you go in to the blades 2 and 3 for crossguard, it just won't have an off behavior, but you can combine it. I've just been so busy, I haven't had a chance to do updates on the library. I do have the plan to get preon effects added to Crystal Chamber code. It's just not there yet, and actually these Crystal Chambers are specific, so they don't actually have the enhanced screen on them. So right now, if you're in here, I don't have a preon built in. I have to add it to the library to be able to be done. That's something on my list that I just haven't gotten to. But you could go in and choose your preon effect for the second blade, and then what you have to do is you'd have to combine if you combine the style and just grab the off behavior from a different Crystal Chamber and combine it in editor or combine it in your config, that would do it too. But well, I will get preons added to the crystals. I just haven't had the time for that yet. Close this up. Let's see. Smooth Jazz, Dark Red. So red is kind of tough. There's dark red on NeoPixel. There isn't really a way to get to it unless you dim the red. So if you, let me grab one of these that I'm not using. So if you pull your red down, it kind of darkens it, but it's not probably in the way that you're thinking. Like I'm guessing more like a dedicated actual red LED would be able to do. But if you pull down, so 255 being the highest value, if you pull down, now it'll look different on your Saber, but you could try something like that. And you don't have to drop all the way to 200, but pull that down, you might be able to get a darker red color. Neon is, I think you'd need probably a special blade to actually get to that type of thing, because you're dealing only with RGB colors. So that's a little trickier. But you can mess with color combinations. You can mess with the color picker here, try to find colors that are close to kind of what you're looking like. So actually that's kind of neonish. So you get into this, it's probably going too dim. So you can get kind of into I forget what Tron colors are. It's been a while since I've seen it, but you could get into the color picker and try to find a color combination. And these RGB 16 colors do work perfectly fine. The OS translates them. Now the output might look a little different just based on what your NeoPixels can actually output, but you can get to more colors with this color picker than even the RGB, just the 255 values. Let's see. Yeah, no worry, Blazehawk. Specific questions about configs get a little tricky without seeing the config. And just because of this kind of environment, it's tough, obviously, in the chat to try to post it. So if you're not a member of the open source and the Proffieboard support groups on Facebook, definitely join them. I have links in the library, and you can also just look them up on Facebook. And a lot of the guys who you see in this chat here are members there, and a lot of them are extremely helpful members who will probably reply to you there as well. Everybody in the chat, everybody in those groups, everybody starts out with Proffieboard not knowing how to actually do anything, myself included. And then just by asking questions and doing some reading, you learn, and then you become an expert on it, and you start helping the next new people. Let me see. So let me, I guess I can demo just the basics of the edit mode real quick. That was going to be the plan tonight, but I haven't gone off on all the questions, and that clock keeps ticking on me, and I will be ending 10-ish on pretty close to time just because of the kids. So let me switch. Let me get the Saber turned on. If you guys have questions, you can continue to post them. I got to get this Saber on real quick and switch over to the other camera. But I'm going to do a quick demo with this. Again, the videos I made are better just because time, just trying to explain everything. I don't usually try to write my thoughts ahead of time, which is actually why my videos run on, but I did for that so I didn't miss anything, because there's actually a lot in this. And it helps when you don't drop stuff. All right, I think we're about ready. Let's hope that camera's good. All right, so switching the cameras over. Cool. All right, that should be good. Also, audio-wise, you guys still hear me? Because sometimes whenever I switch to this camera, it decides to mess with the audio. If anybody in the chat has any issues with audio, just put them up now before I step over to the other side. Guess not. So, all right, so this is going to be a quick demo, just more of the upper layer. So the concept with edit mode in particular is going to be that whatever preset's active. So first and foremost, actually what kind of all groups together is the ability now to jump presets. So typically you would just hit your aux button to advance through presets. What I'm going to do with the new prop file is when you hit your aux button while off, select preset, and that's one of the sounds Brian made, it's going to say select preset, and then each rotation will jump through all your presets. And you can go forward, backward. And then when you get to the one you want now, so I went too far, you press the power button to lock it in, and then that's your preset that's active. Once you've selected the preset you want, chat, make sure that audio is good. Oh, camera one is making too much noise. Yeah, thanks. That's what I was kind of worried about. Let me mute. Where's your mic control? All right, thanks. Thanks for saying it and let me know. All right, so once you get to the preset you want, then the edit mode is going to be a long hold on both buttons. And it'll say edit mode, and it'll ignite the blade. The reason we're igniting the blade is so that you can see everything you're doing and hear it, but all the other controls are actually deactivated in edit mode, so it won't do clashes or blasts or any of that other stuff. It's only to let you see the blade and hear what's going on. And then now I'm in edit mode. Every turn of the hilt will go through the options, so I can edit my style, edit my color, edit font, edit the track, edit the volume, copy preset, and like I was saying earlier, copy and preset will take this exact preset, make a copy of it, and then I can edit that separately and change the color and the font and the track, and all of a sudden I've got a brand new preset. It just has the same style in it. And technically you can change the style, but you can just keep adding presets, and then if you have too many or you've added one you don't want, you have the ability to delete it. And I'm not going to delete anything because I'm actually testing stuff with this Saber, so I have to keep everything as is. So I'm not going to make changes just because I'm testing a few other things I'm working on, and if I forget what I changed, it's going to mess me up later. And then there's an exit, and then what'll happen? Actually, I can. And then exit, and then throughout the menu, if you press power, so that was on exit, it activates it. Now my blade is normal, and then I can turn it off. And then throughout the menu system, also, if you hit your aux button, it will revert and exit. So the controls are going to be pretty simple. You rotate to the menu you want, press power to enter it. While you're in it, the rotation will do something different, like jump through styles or colors. The color wheel existed already. Fonts, tracks, etc. Actually, I can show the track player. So the track player is the other thing that actually uses the same menu system. That I can actually show also. So the track player, you'll go in. So it's a long hold and release on power off. It's going to play the track. It's always going to start with the track that you have in your config. But any other track in this font now I can get by just turning my hilt. And that's the same one because I assigned it. And you can go through all of them. So it's reading every track in that font folder that I've assigned. And this one happens to have a lot. When you get to the one you want, you're going to have 4 playback options. If I just click the power button one time, it's going to just play this track once. If I hold the power button and turn left with the hilt, it's going to loop this track continuously. If I hold the power button and turn right, it's going to rotate, which will play this track and then every subsequent track. And then the other thing I just added is if I just hit the aux button, it's going to play this track and then randomly pick tracks. So we'll do, I'm going to actually turn it off and say, but we could do, and it got drowned out a little bit just because of music, but it said rotate because I held the power button and I turned right. So this track will play, and then after this track finishes, it would jump to the next one sequentially within that track folder. Etc. So the track player actually uses the edit modes capability for tracks, and I've just massaged it into being its own separate player. So now your presets, you actually unlimited tracks. Essentially, you just have to have a track in the folder, and you can play any track you want. But I'm going to stop it because the music is probably actually, hopefully you guys heard me because I found on another video the music drowned me out. But so that's the kind of concepts. And then see. Catch up with the chat in a second. I don't want to kill this battery. I've already drained this thing twice today. Let's get this going. Okay, good. Sorry about that. Let me switch cameras on. Yeah, I was earlier today working on something to try to show Frederick, and I didn't finish, so I want to, I don't want to change any settings on that right now because I'm in the middle of something. Let's get this camera back on. Move. Good. All right. And there we go. All right, let me catch up with chat for everybody. All right, yeah. Yeah, I always forget that second camera sound. I don't know what I don't know what Glad OS is. Sorry, Kim, but it sounds like Brian knows what you're talking about. Yeah, Brian did an awesome job with those sounds. And Brian actually made a bunch of alternate sounds with different voices. So I know he did a ton of work on that, and I do appreciate it. Let's see. Yeah. So yeah, Kim, it's kind of that. That's the thing. So I've had some people, installers, contact me asking questions about a bunch of stuff. But the most common question recently, ever since Battle Mode came out, is, "Hey, I want to build this Saber with no buttons." And there's a few of them who've reached out to me, and a couple even on some of my other live shows. And I keep telling people, you can do a lot with no button, but there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline that you're going to want buttons for. But if you have a Saber with only one button, you might be able to do some of the stuff. But so particularly with just in kind of understanding the controls of the Saber, gestures are really good for certain things. But because gestures, particularly because some of the movements get close to each other, it's sometimes the OS can't tell a specific difference. So for things like editing, it would be terrible if there was no button press, because the Saber would be confused as hell if you just went gestures. The button is a really simple, easy way to send a command to the Saber, because it's just a little click or a long press, or button, your aux button is being pressed and your power button isn't. So you need buttons for a lot of this more kind of detailed stuff, like the edit mode, like the track player, that kind of stuff. But for other things, you can get away with a lot of stuff with gestures. So no button Sabers are. Dimitri was playing with his thing, and he got close. I don't know if he finished, because he was asking me questions. I know Tom was going to look at it. I think SA22C has it on his list. There was somebody in the group, and I'm terrible with names because my memory's going on me. But people are looking at no button Sabers. I have it at the bottom of my list, but it's so the easy answer is no buttons would be possible, but you're going to give up stuff. If you're the type of person who doesn't want to give up stuff and you want to keep your Saber future-proof, at least for the foreseeable future, put two buttons on it. If you have Sabers with only one button, I think that a lot of stuff can be moved to one button, but you're gonna have to give up something, because even with all the gestures possible, there's still going to be kind of a limit, particularly this edit stuff, because you need to have so many different ways to do to tell the controls what actually is happening. Let's see, Bobby Coleman. Let's see, I think short it out. On the PCB, I guess it would depend on what you shorted. That's probably a better question for some of the electrical guys. I'm a new Saber builder. I build my own Sabers, but I also am not gonna say that I'm an expert at it. All my Sabers work. I've only had one Saber die on me. I did have one test rig early on in one of my live shows that I thought I killed, but I actually didn't. I just had a quick touch. But the electric stuff like that, I would say other guys are probably better equipped to answer. I'm more the effects style guy, but it would depend on what happens. So I would say in the groups, and there's also the Saber Builders group, but or on even on TRA, a couple guys might help you better with that. If it didn't cause permanent damage, I would think maybe you could reuse it, but it really would depend, I guess. Let's see, Nick. So then the tracks have to be in a folder in the blade style preset. So there was two iterations for track player, and I think that's what you're referring to. The track player, the very first, so I did two proof of concepts the last week or a week ago. The original proof of concept was actually scanning the entire SD for track folders, and it worked. It would find every single WAV file in a folder that was named tracks, no matter where it was. The issue became, as I started to look at it, is if you have a lot of fonts, and a lot of fonts nowadays come with their own tracks, it was slowing down because the board has to read everything and index it and then let you play it. And then I also had questions, and Brian was one of them, and there was somebody, again, if I forget your name, it's nothing personal. I'm terrible with names, particularly if it was weeks ago. I'm getting up in age. But a lot of people wanted to have different tracks for different presets. And actually, when I started looking at that, it actually made things more efficient. So the track player, as it's going to be built, at least my plan, will be based on the root folder and then tracks within it. So each font would have a tracks folder. You can do, so where it'll work though, right, is because of the font search path. That's the wrong stuff. Pay no mind to the man behind the curtain. So with font search path, what you will be able to do though, so say you have a dozen tracks that you just want on every preset, and you want to be able to play them with the track player, you can put them in the common folder. So you can have a common/tracks folder, and it'll find it for this preset because common is also considered a root folder for this preset. And then if you have, so common would be the folder that you drop into every preset, and that will be, and that's the other, there's going to be some config stuff, and I'm trying to touch a lot of bases all at once. This common folder is going to be a common theme. This is what makes edit mode run all the time, is that on purpose, edit mode, if you try to change your font, it's going to append the common folder because we need the font, we need the menu sounds. If you try to go into edit mode menus without sounds, good luck, because it's technically the controls are actually layered. So depending on what you've told the Saber based on the button clicks and the turning, it's going to do very different things without those prompts from the audio, which Brian provided. If you get into edit mode and don't have the sound files to support it, it's going to be kind of a nightmare getting out of it. So common is going to be the repository for all the menu sounds. You can put your own menu sounds into your base font, which is the first font, and it'll work perfectly fine, and it'll use those. But what we have to do is, again, lowest common denominator to make sure that people don't have problems with it is we are going to append the common folder automatically when you change your font, so that we can guarantee that there are sounds for edit mode always present. But so for the track player, because of the way it scans these directories for each preset to find tracks. So if you had tracks that you just wanted for everything, you would just put them in common/tracks. It'll find it. If you have tracks that you want only when you have this, in this case, this blue font, you put the blue/tracks like this. Only it only needs to be, you don't actually put it. The OS just looks for this combo and plays. So you will be able to have tracks that are shared across everything. It's just the root/tracks folder won't get seen with this method. Now, if it's something you really wanted, you could technically go in and edit the code after it's released, and then you would get it. But it actually works. It's actually a lot more efficient and works a lot better, this approach, than my very first approach. Just because by narrowing down what it has to scan and index, it performs a lot better. So if you had, if you drop 100 tracks inside of one of those folders, you're going to see some slowdown because it's a lot for it to index. This is Jesse Kyberphonics, the Fallen Order Survivor font. I get the names mixed up. I think it has 19 tracks in it, and it works perfectly fine. But when I had it, so I had each folder had their own like dozen tracks, and I think I loaded 40 fonts for testing. The track player was kind of slow. So yeah, let's see. Yeah. So it's font specific, but again, because you're going to have the font search path, you can mix and match. You can have a common track that goes everywhere, and then font specific tracks. Now, what it's going to do when it indexes them, it's going to index them in the order that it finds them. So whatever's in the blue folder would be indexed first, and then whatever's in the common folder would be indexed second. But the track player goes forward and backwards. So if you start in track player and turn left, it'll go backwards, which means it would start in the common folder and go backwards. If you turn forward, it'll start in the blue folder and go forwards. So the track player is really easy to get to stuff, different tracks if you have a lot. Again, I think the ones I've been testing have been like 19, 20 tracks, and I can get to them pretty easy. But still a ton of testing, so this stuff isn't finalized even. Let's see. Mountain Sabers. So yeah, there's going to be and it's more for edit mode. And edit mode is not going to replace updating your config like normal. It's meant to be an option. So like myself and a lot of other people who just, it's like, no problem for us to go in and just edit the config when we want something. That's still going to be your best method because you can do a lot more. What edit mode does is, like, if you're the type, first of all, if you're an installer and you want to just give somebody a Saber and then that person doesn't want to learn a computer or has some, I still submit to a lot of people who are afraid of trying Proffi or afraid of the unknown. They're not really incapable of learning it, but if you just don't want to learn it, you don't want to deal with it, that's kind of where edit mode fits in. And actually, when I was selling the idea to Frederick, from my point of view, it was so I can give the Saber to my son, and so he can change it all he wants without me having to keep hooking it up to the computer. But it's limited because it can only use what exists on the board. And it's going to have requirements in terms of the config, like I was saying earlier, so that you can get the most out of it. And really what that is just being efficient with fitting more presets in. Now, if you're the type of person, you have like 3 or 4 styles that you run for on a dozen presets, you have no problem. It's just if you're the type of person who has like 20 styles that you love and you want them all over the place, being more efficient with how the styles are built and or how you set your config up is going to be important. And then that common folder is part of the equation of making it easier for users. The common folder, if you don't include the common folder when you first build the preset, it's not going to be there. But when you use edit font, the OS is going to add it. And what it was just in talking to Frederick and planning stuff out. Without it, like I said, if somebody grabs a brand new, so you buy a brand new font, the fonts probably aren't going to support edit mode for a while. They're not going to have sounds. And like I said earlier, if you put if you assign a font that doesn't have sounds for the menu, you actually can't get out of the menu unless you're like really, really lucky. So in order to make sure that doesn't happen, we have to always have those sounds present. Because it's really, the menu itself is actually really simple. It's button clicks and turns. But it uses button clicks and turns for everything. So you could be in one mode, button click does one thing. If you're in a different mode, that button click might delete your preset. If you're in a different mode, it might copy it. If you're in a different one, it might change the track when you want to change the font. Without the verbal prompts from the sound files, you don't know what you're doing. So we needed to have it. But yeah, the edit mode, if you're going to use edit mode, and this will all be in the big write-up when it comes out, there will be a common folder that will be put out. And I hope I'm not speaking out of line, but my concept when talking to Brian was that the common folder will contain Brian's menu sounds, and I'm hoping I would offer it, as long as he's cool with it, because he invented the sounds, through my library, and I would also try to get Frederick to maybe add it as part of just the default sound package. I haven't talked to him about that yet because I didn't have full okay from Brian yet, and sorry for putting you on the spot, Brian. But that would be the plan. If not, we would do something. But the sounds in the common folder for the menu are going to be necessary for it to really be able to be used. So that's why it's there. And let's see. Yeah, sorry if that was out of line, Brian. I do apologize, and we'll figure something else out. But when I reached out to you, that was kind of the concept I was going after, and I might have put it in the message, but if I didn't, that's on me. But at any rate, the sounds have to be there if you're going to use edit mode, or you're not actually going to be able to use edit mode. Oh yeah, the font search path, when that was introduced, that's huge because that was introduced right before or right with OS 4 when Lightning Block and Melt were added, and a bunch of stuff. And then in my battle mode, update, I added a bunch of sounds. So the without the comment folder, you used to have to go, and if you have all these new effects, if you have thanks, Brian. I was pretty sure we talked about it, but again, I said my memory is going. But I lost my train of thought. The use of the font search path. If you have sounds like melt and lightning block or menu sounds, battle mode sounds, etc., being able to just put those in one place instead of having to copy and paste them to every single one of your fonts. And I even had it sometimes where I would have fonts that I forgot I didn't put like the melt sound in or the lightning block or something else, and I would use them, and I would be mad because it wasn't playing the sound I wanted, and then I have to go look at it. The Advent Frederick's edition of the font search path made it so much easier because those common type sounds that you just, a lot of them are menu type stuff, but some of them like the melt and lightning block, there's not a lot out there. Brian made a couple. Jesse made some in his OS 4 pack, but I haven't seen a lot of font makers doing it. So you're kind of more limited, and it just makes it easier. So, and the way it works, if you're not familiar with it, is that every sound is looked at first in that first folder. So if you had, say, a melt sound specific to this blue font, that's what would get used. What the OS does is any sounds that are part of the OS that it can't find in this folder, it goes to the next folder to look for. So you can have all of these, you can have say you have 90% of your sounds font specific, and then there's just 10% that you just don't have. That's where that common comes into play. And then, like I said, the advent of the menu system is going to make it more valuable. But the addition that Frederick did, where you can have these search paths, and the fact that it actually gives you the ability to say which one matters. So if even sometimes like your font.wave, which plays when you change presets, if you have, if you didn't want to use, if you had specifics that you want to use, you could put them all in blue. If you wanted like the same one to play for whatever reason, you could just delete it from blue, put it in common, and put common everywhere, and your preset change would be the same. Because some people, a lot of fonts, in my experience, have a quote or the character name. But I do know there are people who I've talked to, they don't like that. They don't like audio, like spoken things. So they like just sound effects. So they kind of change their font.wave sound so it sounds more like it's mechanical, so that you can have that cue that the preset changed, but not have somebody talking at your Saber, which makes sense. So there's a lot you can do with that search path. Let's see. Oops, clicked the wrong one. Sorry, BK. Thanks for joining. These chats are moving too quickly. I can't click on what you guys are saying. That was the one I wanted. Yeah, Proffi's moving really fast. It's going to continue to, actually. There's Brian posted a link in the chat for those who want to find out more, although hopefully I explained it all correctly. That's how I understand it. So if you read something different, then obviously what this says is more correct than what I said. Let's see, Andrew. Oh, sorry, Andrew, I forgot. Zadig to find. So, I can try to help you here. I would say it's probably best to go on the newbie thread, but let me try to give you some ideas. Let's just look at TRA. Oh, I hate that it goes automatically to that. That's not what I wanted. Sorry. Where are you? Newbie. There we go. If my explanation doesn't help you, just because I'm going to be cutting out shortly and I'm covering it with your quote here, this thread is your best bet. If you're not familiar, it's the rebelartillery.com. If you're not a member and you have a Proffieboard, just become a member. It's a real quick, easy sign up, because Professor Zorn, Frederick, who invented Proffieboard, will answer you here. And there's nobody who knows more, obviously, than him. But other people like Brian and a few others on our chat here, they also can help answer here. I try to help with troubleshooting on the computer side as best I can. But in all honesty, again, that's kind of a little outside where I'm good at. So if you have Zadig loaded, right? So you only need to do Zadig once, first of all. So let's get that out of the way. If you've never hooked your Proffieboard up to your computer, you're going to have to run Zadig to get the drivers. If it's Windows, if it's Mac, you don't worry about it. When you first load Zadig, and you have to have your board plugged in, what you want to do is you're going to hold on the board. And if you have the V2.2, it's those tiny little buttons. You're going to hold the boot button. Let me pull that up just to show you a visual. And if you don't have the V2, it's actually easier, but you're going to hold the boot button, this guy on the left. And then while you're holding that, you're going to click the reset button, and that's going to put the board in bootloader mode. And then Zadig should see it. But I've used these boards. These buttons are not easy to press unless you have like some tweezers or something really small. But you only have to do that once. So if it's giving you a hard time, the Zadig is just to get the drivers for Windows to understand what this board is. You do it one time, and that's it. I've seen, and even I think last night Meg2 was talking about it. I've even seen in some of the groups people who are running Zadig all the time. If you have to run Zadig all the time, that means you have a driver issue on Windows. And I'm going to show this one. Frederick has a great video on that. And again, he's the expert, not me. Let's pull up Frederick. And we go to his channel. And it's this one right here. If you haven't watched this video yet, this one should help you out. But again, if you're stuck, if you can't get to those buttons, Frederick might know a better way. But this video here walks you through everything, because what ends up happening if you run Zadig multiple times, you end up loading bad drivers, or the wrong drivers get there, and then that could be an issue. But to run Zadig the first time, you're going to hold the boards, the two buttons on the board like I showed, and that should make it visible. And if it doesn't, I would definitely say the TRA newbie thread, because Frederick is really great at troubleshooting and helping with that. Or the Proffi and open source group, there's a lot of people there. But I find that when people have a hard time with the drivers, Frederick is usually the best to talk to. Sorry if that's not helpful. I'm one of the people who didn't understand how to hook the Proffieboard the first time to my computer. I need Frederick to be able to do it. Ever since I did it the first time, I've actually never had to do it again. So I don't have the experience to troubleshoot that for you because mine's always worked. So I'm kind of a bad example. But the reason mine always works is because Frederick helped me do it. So that's why I usually direct people to him. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of the people here, Ken is saying that when you post, Andrew, I see you're right here. If you post in the Proffieboard support group or the open source group for the help there, or in TRA, just explain what you've done so far. So if you've done Zadig once before, or it's never worked, just explain that, because it kind of helps people understand what stage you're at, and they'll get you through it. But people will get you through it. You're going to need access to those buttons. I'm pretty sure, but again, Frederick will know. But the more information you give, the more help you can get. But there's better people to help you with that. So good luck. Yeah. Hopefully it's helpful. The first time, it's it. Zadig, you just have to get it fixed the first time, or if the drivers are messed up, get them fixed. You never have to deal with it again. And then, like I've done a dozen or so Proffieboards. It was just that first one I didn't hook up right, and I didn't get the drivers right. Ever since then, I've done all of them, never having to touch it, and actually never having an issue. I just plug my USB in, computer knows what to do, and we're good. So it's the first time, get the drivers set up right. Every other time is going to be easy. Let's see. So hopefully, I feel like that wasn't helpful, but you said it was. But they'll get you sorted. There's plenty of help out there, so don't get frustrated. But we're getting about that time. I'm probably going to have to get these little ones in bed. So I didn't get to cover all the style stuff I wanted this week. But I feel like I answered all the questions, so I'll say it's a good trade-off. But thanks everybody who joined tonight. Anybody who's catching this also on replay. If you have specific questions, that you, particularly style. So I'll always try to answer Profi questions, but the hardware stuff, I'm never going to claim to be an expert there. I know enough to make mine work. That's where my knowledge ends. But styles and effects, I'm going to try to mimic anything you guys come up with. Hey, Tom made it on. Yeah, I knew you talked about that last night, Tom. Yeah, Zadig only once. That's one of the hangups. You do not, Smooth Jazz, no. And I don't have a Mac. Brian does. But you don't have to do Zadig on a Mac because, as I understand it, the Mac just understands what the Proffieboard is. The Windows has no clue what it is. Oh, hey, congrats on the granddaughter, Tom. Very cool. No worries. You can always watch this in playback. But all right, I was signing off. I'm going to continue to sign off. Thanks everybody for joining. That's where I was going. If you have questions about styles, I should be on next week. You can always put them in the comments on this video, or you can always post in the Facebook groups, particularly anybody with specific style questions. There was a couple that I had gotten asked today, and I'm sorry if you guys are on and I didn't get to them. It wasn't intentional. I just got sidetracked. But we'll cover more style stuff next week, and lots more stuff to come. Lots of stuff in the works. So thanks for joining, everybody. Have a good night and Happy New Year.